There's a game missing from the upper echelon of esports. Not just esports actually, but the gaming zeitgeist in general. I'm talking, of course, about Halo. Forget Valorant and people asking you to use your skins every round. Forget Fortnite and the children turbo building an exact replica of Buckingham Palace on top of you while you're trying to play a shooter game. Halo should have a higher population than all of them.
I didn't play it. We caught it. We gotta jump off with that.
Rewind to the early 2000s, and there's an entire roster of legends from Major League Gaming that a lot of the kids these days don't know, but they were pioneers of competitive gaming, paving the way for games as a legitimate place for competition. Some of them have even crossed over from Halo to find popularity and success elsewhere. Before Ninja broke out and achieved his unprecedented levels of fame, from the late 2000s up until the release of Fortnite, he was a professional Halo player. Everyone has a different list for greatest gamer of all time, and answers are highly dependent on who you ask. There are some stock answers though. Flash and Boxer from StarCraft, No-Tail from Dota 2, Mewtwo King from Super Smash Bros., Simple and Forest from Counter-Strike, Faker in League of Legends. Ogre 2, the greatest Halo player of all time, won 40 major tournaments across 5 separate Halo titles. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. This guy and his brother were so good, they named their team Final Boss because they were inevitable at LAN events. How badass is that? If you didn't experience this era of gaming, it's difficult to adequately convey how massive Halo used to be. I wasn't a PC gamer as a teenager, and, hard as it may be to believe nowadays, that was actually the general trend at the time. My friends and I weren't hanging around in voice chat on Discord. We were sitting in the pre-game lobby of Halo 2, waiting for people to hop in and out to talk.
Everybody likes to go to their buddy's house and order pizza and get something to drink and wipe the Cheetos off your hands and jabbing each other and calling them names.
It was a game, yes, but it also functioned as a social hub. There were other games on the original Xbox. We just didn't play them much. Everybody had Halo. It's just what we played. Fast forward into 2007 towards impending juggernaut Halo 3. Want to know how enormous Halo used to be? Check out the Starry Night advertisement. It aired during Monday Night Football in December of 2006. I'm a big sports guy and always have been, so I was going to see the ad no matter what. But even my friends who did not care about sports in the least were turned into the game to catch that commercial. How many other video games can boast that level of investment? This was nearly 10 full months before the game even launched, by the way. Speaking of launch, days of September 25th and 26th of 2007 are some of my fondest gaming memories in my entire life. We lined up at a GameStop in person at a closed mall with hundreds of other gamers. We got there early in the afternoon and were 6th in line to get our copies. My aunt actually let us set up a huge LAN party in her basement. Our parents let us skip school to slam game fuels, eat pizza, and wear out the joysticks on our controllers, playing as many custom games as we could get through. Halo midnight release events used to be covered by regular news stations.
Video gamers across the country are anxiously awaiting the midnight release of a game called Halo 2.
45 minutes and counting for Halo 2 to go on sale.
The line right now is probably about 100 yards long.
It is the most anticipated game in entertainment history.
Bill Gates personally sold the first copy of Halo 3 at a Best Buy. In the modern age of AAA gaming, with the quality control issues and digital distribution, we will never see more events like this again. I don't speak for everybody, but I can't be alone in my dissatisfaction with what shooter games are like these days. It feels like every single one of them fits into a few narrow categories. Obviously, there are the battle royales, your Fortnite, Apex Legends, and Warzone. There are hero shooters like Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch. Then you have the tactical games like Counter-Strike, Tarkov, and Rainbow Six Siege. In many cases, these games blend genres. Valorant is a tactical hero shooter, for example. It gets kind of boring to load into a game and then spend a significant chunk of time not actually playing the game. In Fortnite, you have to go looting items, hunt for players, and farm materials. The others are largely round-based, where if you die, you are just watching your teammates and hoping they pull out a win. I don't dislike this style of game entirely, but I do miss Halo's frenetic action. You aren't limited to one life, and when you die, you respawn quickly back on the map and get back into the action. There is really nothing like Halo around anymore, except for Halo itself, but that's a different video for a different day. I'm going to classify Halo as an arena shooter for the sake of simplicity simplicity, even though I'm aware that there are some solid arguments to be made that it shouldn't actually qualify. The most popular titles to fit into that box are Doom, Quake, and Unreal Tournament. Halo had more in common with those games than it does with every modern game I listed earlier. The characteristics that give Halo its identity as a multiplayer game are the arena maps, quote-unquote even starts, on-map pickups, and objective-based positional gameplay. This is another section that could be an entirely separate video all on its own. The real beauty of the Halo games, though, was that you really could play the game however you wanted. Are you a single-player, story mode gamer? It was perfect for you, and the campaign modes are highly regarded. Did you like to get sweaty, calling out every move your opponents made and coordinating with a like-minded team to grind a ranked ladder and improve your skills? There was a robust and thriving competitive scene with pro players to emulate. Maybe you prefer to kick back on the couch, catching up with friends and trying out ridiculous shit to have a good time. You would have been right at home in big team battles, messing around in Halo's delightful sandbox. Are you a creative type, interested in building your own maps or game types? From Halo 3 onwards, there was something called Forge, the series version of a map editor. Players could make custom maps or inventive new rule sets for custom games, which, by the way, were yet another way that players could enjoy Halo. There's an enormous list of fan favorites, including Fat Kid, Duck Hunt, Tower of Power, Racetrack, Storm the Beach, Octagon, and the original versions of Griffball and Zombies. If you want to talk about a precursor to Epic Games' Unreal Editor for Fortnite, this is it. The passion for playing the game how you wanted gave rise to an absolute classic of machinima, Red vs. Blue. The Rooster Teeth guys created a storyline and series that ran from 2003 until 2020. People made TikTok-worthy spoofs and parodies using music of the day, like the famous Halo version of Akon's Sorry, Blame It On Me. Or the Halo 3 Hoedown. I won't subject you to that one. Halo's heyday came in a different era of gaming. It existed in a time before the advent of the modern microtransaction, and this might be a subconscious reason why people remember it so fondly. It didn't feel like Bungie was trying to rummage through your pockets for all of your spare change at every opportunity. Not to say that the series didn't have issues. They did offer paid DLC map packs for a few bucks that prevented players from joining certain playlists unless they owned them, but each pack became free a few months after release. Games are just monetized differently today, and the free-to-play model has its own set of pros and cons. All of this has been sort of a roundabout way of telling you that in a past life, one of Bungie's mottos used to be, "We make games we want to play." The original company was gamers and nerds determined to make something that was fun first. All of the success and accolades came from the baseline of cultivating a player base because the game was good and something you wanted to play with your friends. This is something missing from a lot of games today after they have become big business and corporate investment. Bungie itself isn't the same company anymore and has faced consistent criticism for Destiny and the way it has been handled. In a way, they were a victim of their own success. So, what happened? How is it that one of the most popular game franchises of all time has fallen into complete and utter irrelevancy? It isn't quite at the same sub-basement level as stuff like Sonic or Twisted Metal or Golden Sun, but why isn't anybody playing it now? It's remembered fondly, and if Twitch had been a thing in the mid-2000s, there's zero doubt in my mind that it would have been in the upper echelon alongside World of Warcraft. There are a few talking points that the Halo community loves to use to answer this question, me included. Most prominently, I think the series fell off because of an identity crisis. Beginning with 2010's Halo Reach, Bungie's final entry in the series, the games have not had the same feel as the original Master Chief trilogy. From that point on, there's a pretty obvious attempt to incorporate the things that were trendy in gaming at the time of release. I don't want to get too deep into this, because I can and have bored people to tears about it, but Halo never needed the loadouts or abilities included in games after the third one. It never needed the bizarre and obnoxious Promethean enemies in the campaign. It didn't need 3 or 4 guns that basically do the same exact thing with different animations, muddying the sandbox. And it absolutely, definitely, positively did not need anything even close to resembling an ordnance drop. Seriously? What the f***? The concept flies in the face of how Halo was played for over a decade. Another problem is that the preferred style for shooter games is in constant flux. If you look at the trends of popular FPS games, you can see these sort of seismic shifts, where players redefine what style they actually enjoy playing. The original arena shooters gave way to Halo, which gave way to Call of Duty, which was usurped by battle royales and hero shooters. All the while, tactical shooters like Counter-Strike were chugging away and finding their own success. If you're still here, I know you're waiting for me to talk about 343 Industries. After almost a decade and a half of ineptitude, dishonesty, undelivered promises, and generalized failure, it's exhausting to think about devoting more energy to tearing them apart. However, there is an enormous list of problems with the way 343 Industries has handled Halo since they took over the franchise.
What? You can't do it. You can't play a match. 343 didn't earn this. That's why they don't care about it. They didn't earn this.
You could probably make a movie out of that particular saga, and you can find lengthy deconstructions of the company on this platform already. So I'll leave this reason for Halo's downfall as a quick summary. The company specifically created for stewardship of the intellectual property has a horrific track record in communication, decision-making, and reliability. At nearly every stage in Halo's development since 2010, they have been at best incompetent and lacking a fundamental understanding of why people loved it in the first place. At worst, they have been intentionally deceptive, outright dishonest, and antagonistic. These issues are clear and obvious if you have kept up with Halo at any point since Bungie's last game in the series. They weren't perfect either, but the difference in quality and polish between the first 4 complete games and the attempts that 343 has made is astounding. I think a more underrated reason why Halo has fallen off so hard is something that a bunch of games struggle to balance nowadays. It started out as a console shooter game, and so long-time, dedicated fans of the series overwhelmingly prefer to play it with controller. I fit into this category, even though I haven't used an Xbox or a PlayStation in years. I've tried to play the Master Chief Collection and Halo Infinite with a mouse and keyboard, and something about it feels so wrong. It's probably the 2+ decades of muscle memory that suddenly don't apply. Controller is just a part of Halo's DNA. The whole idea of cross-platform and different input devices is fine for casual gaming, but how do you reconcile that mismatch for a competitive scene? In its golden era, competitive Halo was, naturally, played on controllers. Nobody had an advantage over anyone else, unless you want to argue about aftermarket controllers with paddles or more ergonomic buttons, and I don't. The fundamental thing here is that there was no real mismatch. I don't want to villainize controllers. I grew up using them, and a preference for one over a keyboard and mouse is totally valid. Games are still games and meant to be fun. I'm approaching this from the angle of competitive gaming where real money is on the line. Controllers are still viable in some games today, mainly Rocket League, but you'll find that they are a contentious subject in shooter games, such as Apex, and probably will receive more attention now that Valorant is coming to consoles. In order to actually play on a controller, games must include some combination of aim assist and/or bullet magnetism. This is incredibly difficult to balance because if there's too much of it, keyboard and mouse players feel cheated by the game. If there's too little, controller players will never be able to win gunfights against someone with a mouse. Halo is in this weird position where the core fanbase expects to not only play on controllers, which is of course fine, but to also be competitive with them as well. There is an established pro scene with familiar faces. Some of them have been playing for well over a decade now. If we take at face value that keyboard and mouse is the more competitive method of playing a shooter game, this puts Halo in an impossible position with respect to being taken seriously as a competitive game. The game must do one of 3 things: abandon consoles altogether, alienate its fans by making controllers utterly non-competitive in lobbies with PC players, give up on making any real headway into the PC gaming market. The game has always been seen as one made for console players, and that mindset is impossible to break with strong aim assist. I think it's pretty obvious that options 1 and 3 are not really options at all for a company like Microsoft. Halo used to be the flagship game for Xbox, and of course they want to get PC gamers involved, which leaves option 2 as the most viable. Ultimately, I don't think they have the stones to basically reset how the franchise is played, but I can't see another way to bring in PC players and not have them get frustrated and leave because of the controller issue. They could get so many other things corrected and done right, but I believe the PC population would still move on if they felt at a disadvantage to console players. There was an easy and obvious way to get new people into the Halo universe. I'm not talking about the lore assassination that is the television show on Paramount, though that could have worked if it showed any respect at all to the story. No, my question is, where is Halo's take on Battle Royale? The franchise has the perfect concept for the genre baked in already with the ODSTs. They launch to the surface of planets in personal drop pods and represent some of the best soldiers that humanity has to offer. Does any of that sound familiar to you? Even if you're familiar with Halo, have you seen that basic idea anywhere else recently? Halo's ODST Battle Royale never came, but Helldivers basically took the concept for its own. A lot of the focus on why I think Halo has had such a drastic fall is centered around the competitive aspect. Generally speaking, I prefer competitive games and to play games in a competitive way. I still enjoy story modes, party games, and cooperative game types, but as far as I can tell, the video games that survive a long time and thrive with active and attentive fan bases tend to have healthy and engaging competitive competitive gameplay somewhere. I do not think a game needs to only be made for sweating on an elo grind. Oftentimes, competitive players fail to see the forest for the trees when they talk about their game of choice. They can be overly detail-oriented and misunderstand that for a series like Halo, a new player's initial attraction has nothing to do with how fair or unfair multiplayer matches are at a high level. Halo is a different game for everyone. It doesn't help to alienate players perceived as lesser because they aren't as skilled or dedicated. The more people playing in any way at all, the stronger the foundation of players. The odds are good that people try out other parts of the game and word of mouth is positive. A perfect analog that was recently successful is Rocket League. It's an amazing game to pick up and play a few matches sitting with someone on your couch. You could hop into a 1v1, queue up for some unranked doubles games, or try out one of their cool spin-off modes for an easy switch up and some laughs. Rocket League's fundamentals are incredibly basic. You drive your car around, sometimes jumping, dodging, and using boosts to try and hit a large soccer ball into a goal. Every match is timed, 5 minutes. Every player has the same possibilities within a game. After your first hour, you will probably feel like you're getting good. After 10, you'll know you're good. By 50 hours, you'll get frustrated that some players just seem to move faster and jump higher than you. In hour 100, someone will soar over your head and literally slam dunk a shot in your face that you couldn't dream of saving. At hour 1000, you'll wonder how you could have spent so much time playing and not close the gap in any meaningful way on players who can air dribble, flip reset, wall dash, and contest with ease every attempt you make to move the ball. From an extremely simplistic set of rules and mechanics, Rocket League has extraordinary depth and room for skill expression, but I would wager that the game wouldn't have had such a great run if it wasn't fun and easy to pick up and play to begin with. It's difficult to find that balance between a game made for competitive players and a casual, fun game that isn't taken seriously, but it's crucial to walk that line to keep a steady flow of people interested and willing to not only give a game a try, but to stick with it because its formula works. One of Halo's strongest features is that it had plenty of ingress points for players of all types. Once they were in, you could expect some cross-pollination, but for years now, almost every single subset of the Halo fanbase feels alienated and abandoned by the developer. A lot of the time, they blame the other fans instead of the real culprit. Halo isn't bad now because 343 caters to competitive players. It isn't bad now because the developer doesn't want to hurt the feelings of low-ranked players or because they put too much effort into a part of the game you don't play as much. It's bad now because everything has been a half compromise since 2010, and there is no clear understanding about why fans loved the Bungie games. Give us a Halo game that is basically and fundamentally faithful to the spirit of the franchise. One that is just as fun to play from a living room recliner as it is hunched over a monitor pushing 300 frames per second. Done correctly, the fans will guide the way from there. At the end of the day, I'll always love Halo, mostly for what it used to be, but also for what it could be. Yeah, I grew up playing it, and for that reason, I'm more willing to accept and overlook some flaws. But I also know that if you put 8 people in a room who liked a game but have never tried it before, after a couple of hours running around in multiplayer or experiencing the campaign, they're going to want to come back for more. There's just something that feels different when the timer beeps to 0, the game starts up, the map is coated in Covenant purple, and you hear Jeff Steitzer's voice.
Capture the flag.